It's like transformation of voice into graphs. Make us feel like we are some kind of android. And that's whatever. Oh, yeah, it's nice. Whatever. That's right. Whatever.
Hello, and welcome to this first episode of the podcast called Whatever. This is a place where you would find me, Aditya Mandlek, and Mr. Moon Hoon discuss life as architects and life when we are not architecting. And I hope you enjoy it.
We should start with the death of an architect, okay?
Okay.
Raphael Vignoli. We'll talk shortly about Raphael Vignoli. Do you know this guy?
I know this guy, but I did not know of him
Until he died.
until he died. But
Oh, really?
yes,
Okay.
yes. I did not know his name until he died, but I definitely was aware of a lot of his work. Like I knew of these buildings, but I did not know his name.
Rest in peace. I think he died a few months ago. I
Right.
think.
Yeah.
So, what building do you remember from his work?
I would not remember the name of the building, but I can. It's a tower. It's in London. It goes something like that. It goes.
Oh, did he? Well, I don't know anything he did in London. Oh, I think I became aware of him because he won the Tokyo's Forum, some kind of big building in Tokyo,
Okay.
which was I think the main jury was Fumio Maki. You know this guy, Maki?
Maki, yes. Maki, I know.
Maki, not the maki you eat, but the Fumihio Maki, not tuna maki, huh? Yeah. So you know this guy. Okay. Anyway, so that was when I became aware of Neil Dinari. His project was fantastic, almost Neil Dinari's work. Anyway, I'm just going the other way around. But anyway, he has a very different kind of forms, and he built something in Korea also, which was very strange because he has a building in Korea called Top Cloud, and it's a building that goes up, and then suddenly three elevator posts go up, and there's a big void in the middle, and there's something on top. So for a skyline, that was really shocking. But the funny thing is, no public talk about these things. You know what I mean? If he was Frank Gehry, probably people talk, newspapers would rave about this, but suddenly you realize he's pretty famous, but then nobody talks about the building. I was surprised because it was such a daring move in his forms. Not necessarily that I'm a fan of his work. I'm just saying because he passed away. So yeah, my form's terrible too, I know. But my form's weird. But his form was also weird. And so that got me. But then he did this. Yes.
I think he's done like big projects and very, very interesting projects. It's just as you rightly said, right? Like if no one remembers, say, these smaller interventions, big interventions, but like smaller detailed and thought of interventions for the city, by like they're not remembered by the people. But say if Frank Gehry would do it, everyone would rave about it, as you said, right? So
Yes,
how?
that's a big issue.
So what is the difference? Why both are architects? Why does one have the superstar status versus a celebrated architect but not very known? Like I did not know him, and I think I'm subject to this something. Something being the communicated media, where I wasn't aware of him as much. So why do you think, how, as an architect?
Well, I don't really know. I don't have an answer for it, but I think it's the distinct character of the style, or the style that can be read. Probably, I don't know. For example, Herzog and de Meuron have many styles, but then
Right.
many different ideas. But then you can sort of see that it's their work, right?
Yes.
Maybe I haven't looked in deep enough about Raphael Vignoli, but I don't know. I think it's about the stylistic gesture that's stronger, then people recognize it better. Like Zaha's work, it's all swish, swish, like a snake. Every time it's kind of dynamism, right?
Right.
It's like whoosh,
Yeah.
So people know, oh, it's the snake is coming, so it must be Zaha did. So that stylistic distinction that is impressive or stronger, it seems to work. Like Frank Gehry, he's like Frank Gehry. Yeah, there you go, right?
I
There you
wish
go.
this is video
All right.
recorded.
All right. There you go. Okay. Oh no. I mean, people joke about this with Frank Gehry anyway. So
Yeah.
there's a sort of iconic like part of him already, right?
Mm. Mm.
Like, and also, what who else can we talk about? Like Ando, it's so almost cruel. Concrete wall,
Yeah.
block,
Yeah.
light comes here, shadow comes here this way. Even the shadow is controlled, you know.
Right.
So there's this strong aroma to it.
Mm.
Maybe Raphael has less so. Like think about Caesar Pelli.
Mm.
Nobody besides Paul Sheck. They're great
Right.
architects.
Yeah.
Kevin Roche,
Right.
he has great work, but so I think it's more for the media and becoming more glamorous. I
Mm.
think you need kind of a substantial amount of work that relates to the form and also the who is the client. The clients are, for example, if you work for Louis Vuitton, for example, that building
Mm.
becomes more famous than working for like hip hop. I don't know.
Mm.
So I think
I
many
get it.
things are at work. I think that's the one of the things. Now we have to go to goodbye, goodbye, Rafael. We have, and no, and actually he's from. At first I thought he was a born American, but he's from the middle America,
Right. Yeah.
Uruguay,
Uruguay.
sort of.
Okay.
So he was, but that's a great success story. Uruguay guy coming to New York and being a great architect and successful. So
Yes.
maybe it also has to do something with the framework to look at the architect.
Hmm.
Some architects are looked more respectfully than others for reasons of, I don't know, prejudices such as race, school, and all these things, right? The
Mm.
world is made of all these things, ingredients of prejudice, subjectivity,
Hmm.
and all these bias. So we cannot rule out this either. So
Right.
nothing's completely objective. So yeah, and let's go to the Pritzker Prize winner recently. You know who won it, right?
Recently, yes, David Chipperfield, right?
Yes, Chipperfield. Yeah,
Yes.
Chipperfield.
Yeah.
He's an English guy. He even said, "I'm not that talented of a guy." As that's what he said. Wasn't that a kind of a? It wasn't that really almost funny? Not funny, but oh, is he really saying that? Uh,
Yeah. I think it was very
okay.
humble
Yes,
tone.
yes, yes, yes.
Um,
I think he's the only guy who actually said, I'm not that talented, but how come I'm winning it? There are Stephen Hall waiting, and there are many people still waiting for it. How come I get it? I'm so, but anyway, but Aaron Betsky, this guy from Virginia Tech, I'm sorry, University of Virginia,
no, Mr. Woon.
wrote an article,
Okay.
said that he's not really worthy, sort of.
Okay.
Why him? So there were a lot of a lot of. So we are talking about gossip, right? So
Right.
I think he did. There were actually Aaron Betsky. I actually met him a while ago. So
Okay.
he said something not disparaging, but saying we have other architects. We can, he's more worthy to get the prize at this moment of time.
Hmm.
But then many public were really angry furious about his remarks. Anyway, so this this Pritzker Prize. Why am I talking about this? Because in Korea, every time there's a winner,
Yes.
the newspapers and architecture circles talk about how come Korean architects don't get it or something like that. Yeah, I think it's not important, but how I think many architects in many cultures strive to be recognized by the foundation who run the hotel.
You've spoken about so many things, no, and I think that they're so diverse. Something like say Pritzker or say David Chipperfield addressing and saying that how he has, I mean, he's humbled or to, and he does not know how he's won the award, also hints at possible process, no, that how ambiguous it could be. Like suddenly there is a certain pattern in terms of choice for Pritzker laureates over like a few years, and then there's someone completely out of the blue winning an award.
Yes, 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 yes. So I think, well, I'm not. I think I'm interested in prizes because it lets you to focus on architects. Uh, okay, I'm aware of him. So you rewind back and look at the architects. If they're known, you rewind and re-see them. If they're unknown, it's a discovery for you. For example, last year there was a winner, right? I don't remember his name, sorry, but there was but he had to see substantial work in his native land, and which was, I think, regarded as a very important vernacular kind of social intervention to architecture.
Francis Carey was last year.
Yes, yes. So, like for a few years back, it was focused on Pittsburgh was focused on more lesser known architects, but now they are sort of back on track. That's how they used to be. How Pritzker was the club's award. That's how it was like looked at, I think, because you're world famous. It's like the lifetime achievement award, like in the Grammys. Same thing. That's how it was looked at. So it was probably the same. Like, Foster, Gary, Forces, Ando, all these world established people. They wouldn't need anything anymore, right? And then they get, on top of that, they get a lifetime achievement award. So like people are saying, oh, yeah, it's like Hollywood almost, But then they veer into more of a, because I think the awards they learned from Hollywood, these glamour thing, I think generally learned from Hollywood, so they catch up with that. So, and then they go to veer into social architects and so forth, and then they get bored. The juries find something else. So I think, to be honest with you, even though there is a serious amount of intention, there's always whimsy and spontaneity, like the wind in the choices, I think, Yeah. So I don't want to focus on it too much, but since it's an issue, and Koreans are so serious, Korean architecture feels so serious, why aren't we doing, maybe the education is problem, oh, blah, 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 and so forth. Anyway, yeah. Anyway.
But I mean, very similarly, Mr. Moon, like, say, there's so much of great architecture that happens in India, and yet there's only one Pritzker laureate from India, which is also very recent, right?
Doshi.
Doshi, yes.
Doshi.
I've always wondered why one architect's work is usually better. So for the longest time as a student back in the day, I would think that if there's a language, right? Like say, so I began my journey looking at Zaha's yachts and her drawings.
Mm-hmm.
I remember this was when I just gotten admission into architecture, and I was just very excited, and I started looking into different architects' works. So I was encountered with, say, the yachts designed by her, and then I started knowing her. I did not know her before that, and then and over the period of years, what I realized is that people, I mean, architects like Zaha Hadid, Frank Gehry, even Norman Foster, usually have a very stylistic approach to their practice.
Yes.
There's a perceptual value of a Zaha's building that pre-exists in your mind, even when the building is not there
it's like
as of now.
Yeah, it's like a branded architects, we should call them. Branded.
Exactly.
Yes, it's like a brand. Yes.
So I always wondered if, I mean, as an architecture practice, do you need to have a style? I mean, as a student, right? Like, I'm questioning all of these. And then what is it going to be? Like Herzog de Meuron, right? With like further investigations, Herzog de Meuron comes. I got introduced to him. Then, say, Kengo Kuma, Toyo Ito. And I think this generation is almost where, say, the style usually disintegrates. In a way where every project is a little different, but there's still something that that it's done by an like this particular architect. So, I mean, it's easier to identify a Herzog de Meuron building from, say, a Kengo Kuma building.
Yeah, well, you know what? If we think in terms of alcohol, let's say it's the Norman Foster is like the Scotch whiskey, and then the Norman Foster and Frank Gehry and Zaha's are each whiskeys. We know it's whiskey is 40% alcohol, right? They're all whiskey.
Right.
Now, maybe they are the next level, next down architects are like cocktails. They put something in it, but you still know where it is coming from. So I'm not meant to say adulterated, but it's still stylistic in a way. You cannot get away from it, but then it's more diverse in the approaches and the solutions at each. So If you're a stylistic architect like Frank Gehry, I think I would find it boring because you're sort of doing similar things all the time, right? Or,
Exactly.
but then
Yeah.
there's a comfort zone. You always know
Mm.
what you're doing because you know you're just
Yeah.
doing what you like, right? You're
Yeah.
not veering away from it. But then if you look at Frank Gehry's work, it was never like this all the time. He
Yeah.
had the binoculars standing
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
all these
Yeah.
postmodern work before his house of these
Yeah.
clashes. So I think it riped. Once it ripes in a certain degree, I think the architects go there. It's very hard to
Mm.
go for them to go over. I don't know, or they don't try. Even Zaha, but Zaha is
Yeah.
different because I think before the evolution of computer technology or the parametrics, her work was very angular.
Exactly. Yeah. Her drawings also.
That's when I liked her work
Yes.
most. That's when I stopped liking her. After that, I didn't find her work very intriguing because, like, I think it takes away the edges.
Mm.
The edges are
Yeah.
gone, and as they say, there's no
Mm.
resistance. And then when there's no resistance, there's nothing to like about it. For example, if you have a friend who always loves whatever you say, what are you going to do? Talk to him
Yeah.
because there's no resistance by your friend. For example, you have a friend called Biditya,
Okay.
not Aditya,
Okay.
Biditya.
My evil twin, Mr. Moon.
Yes, and then whatever you say, Biditya says, "Oh, that's great," and then you'll be bored,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So in that case, the Hadid, I think there's no resistance. This digital issue is kind of boring. So all these other works that is digitized for
Mm.
me, sort of lacks something for me. There's too smooth, It's too smooth and then it's slippery.
Yeah.
So like, it's not that it's just my personal subjective attitude
Mm.
towards it. That's all. I like it more kind of a, you know, should have some edges. It should cut your fingers. It should scrape you.
Yeah.
Oh shit, man. So that's how you
Yeah.
learn. I think if there's no
Yeah.
resistance, you don't learn anything. I don't know.
Right.
That's the point.
But,
So I don't know. I mean, for example, there's a tendency of what I like too.
mm.
I like jutting things coming
Mm.
over. I like things opening up, things
Mm.
like that. Of course, there's a
Yeah.
style. I'm sure I'm inclined too. Same
Right.
thing.
I mean,
Yeah.
there are these patterns, obviously.
Yes.
I mean, as designers, we would tend to like address certain issues in similar patterns, and then that probably gets identified as a style. But
Yes.
now say coming back to Rafael Vignoli, Mr. Woon. So,
Yes.
even though his work was not as recognized as someone like Zaha Hadid.
Yeah. You know what? I think, sorry to cut in, but I think there's a certain tendency for architectural field to sort of ignore commercialism, even though it's commercial. You understand? So if an architect is perceived more commercial, but every architects are commercial, right? I mean, every architect are commercial, but they're big. Like a Frank Gehry is like a few hundred people. That's a commercial firm. But then you still don't really regard him as a kind of SOM, right? So Raphael Vignoli, I think, had the disadvantage of being looked at like sort of a SOM or something. I don't know,
Okay.
something like that. I think even in Korea, like there's a like a young architect award.
Okay.
If the young architect, so much they have them too many work, they are sort of pushed aside.
Oh, is it?
You understand? Yeah, sort of. They're too successful. Yeah. Then even though they work but why is it too successful? Because it doesn't have that edge. It has an edge, but
Right.
it's soft.
Yes.
You get it? So it's more commercial. People like it more, so they get more work. So maybe that's why Haruki does not get Nobel Prize because his book sells so well. That's what they say about being involved in this kind of selections committees. And Raphael Vignoli's work, to be sure, I mean, I don't know very much. I got recently aware of this really thin tower it's a residential tower, really thin. That's by Raphael Vignoli. So then I was rekindled of his existence. Before that, all I knew was Tokyo Forum Building. That's like a very sharp egg-shaped thing, and the Korean tower, the Cloud Tower in Korea. So, yeah, but it was always there. But he didn't be canonized like other architects, right? He's not the canon anymore. No. So as a student, what do you see? Yeah. What do you? So I mean, how were you lured into architecture? I mean, was there a kind of a glamour side that you were interested in? Not being like I want to be famous, but I'm saying, wow, look at his work. And so how what was the? I'm just curious. What was the? Who was the first architect that got you? Oh, I like this guy. I want to be an architect.
Mr. Moon, very interestingly, I was never lured in because I saw a building. Probably because buildings around me weren't that interesting at that point. But what really got me was when back in school, I think it was
Yeah.
my ninth grade, and there was engineering drawing
Okay.
as a subject. And we were being introduced to this idea of orthographic projections, isometric, axonometric projections of machining parts, right? That we would hand draft. And this was ninth grade. I was super interested in it, and then into drawing it.
In the drawing. Okay.
I would finish my entire portfolio a month or 2 months before the entire class, just because even at home I would just be doing that. I would just enjoy it.
Oh, okay. So you are fascinated
Yes,
almost.
yes, almost. And then I
Okay.
remember there was some sort of a puncture in the machinic drawing, and
Mm.
I was explaining it to my professor that how I could stand there probably and just slide in that circular puncture, no, and keep on sliding as an infinite loop. Since then, I have just wanted to explore space in that way. So, to be very honest,
Mm.
I didn't become an architect to design buildings, but in some way, probably just to learn how I can curate a space.
Mm.
That has been my inclination.
Okay. For me, I mean, for me, same thing. I never wanted to be an architect. I never thought about it. I was just a doodling all my life, and I was drawing. But then I didn't even think about becoming an artist. So I never thought about becoming anything.
Yeah,
So I was just me all the time.
yeah.
So just drawing all the time. So and then I had to make a choice. So that's the choice I made. But then I realized it's so great, it's so beautiful. So when I went to the School of Architecture in Korea, at the first grade freshman year,
Hmm.
you don't have any architecture courses. It's just mathematics, algebra, computer, whatever other things.
Right.
So from the second sophomore year, you learn. But anyway, I started designing alone
Hmm.
houses.
Okay.
So I was designing houses almost one every day,
Okay.
all the time. So when I was a sophomore,
Yeah.
my professors were shocked. Are you great? How come you draw like your design looks like it's from you know fourth grade or what's the? Yeah, I mean you look like you've sort of you're not a sophomore. So you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So like you, I was so into it.
Yeah.
I got the hang of it.
Yeah.
I was doing designing, everything.
Yeah.
So for me, I think it was more about, and at that time, I was also discovering Richard Meyer, whom I liked for 1 month, and
Why
after 1 month,
1 month,
I
Mr.
threw it
Moon?
away. Well, because when you look at I think it was the first foreign architect book I found in the bookshop.
Okay.
It was a white book published by Rizzoli, New York.
Okay.
And then when I opened the book,
Hmm.
wow, breathtaking greenery and this white house, like purest form,
Yeah.
with pleasurable forms. No,
Yeah.
I didn't know Le Corbusier, but you can trace it back to him, Le Corbusier, right?
Yeah.
Like white, simplified Corbusier, simplified and kind of whitened Corbusier, right?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, but then at that time he was so popular in Korea, so every architecture firms were designing like him on a yellow tracing paper, white buildings with grids and a little bit of curve here, a
Yeah.
little bit of curve there.
Yeah.
So, but then I got tired of him. My next
Sure.
love was Piano Renzo.
Okay.
Renzo Piano. The Pompidou.
Yes.
Oh, that was like, oh, this is a robot sort of mechanic
Yeah.
kind of
High.
Japanese animation or something like that.
Yeah.
But then you got tired of it.
Yeah.
And then I found Ando. Wow. Light, curved staircase.
Yeah.
The most impressive thing about Ando was the stair, like a stair that goes all the way to the top floor and curved.
Yes.
And I just loved that. Oh,
Yeah.
that's beautiful. So it's still in me, that staircase.
Yeah.
I mean, from if it's a fragment that I take from architects, on those curve and staircase all the way, I'll use it. For example, maybe maybe while I'm speaking this, I observe the architects and throw them away. Probably, I don't know. Like Richard Meyer, I think I used him for my third-year project and threw him away.
Yeah.
And
I think this is so fascinating
yes,
when it comes from because you've been practicing for so all your life now.
am I 73? Am I 73? I'm only 55. So I have been practicing for 20. Now I've been practicing for 23 years. Okay, so I'm still. I started my office in 33. When I was 33, I'm 55. So it's been 22 years.
I'm a kid. I'm a child in front of you, right?
No,
So I
come
mean,
on, no, come on. I'm also a kid. I'm 55, but maybe you can say I'm 5.5-year-old. Yeah, at the same time. Anyway,
yeah.
what?
I mean,
Yeah.
no. I mean, in terms of say experience,
Yeah.
it's so interesting for me to hear this from you, is because it's every architect in the journey is almost like a discovery, and then suddenly I would notice an element and done by an architect in a certain way, like say Daniel Lipskin's Jewish memorial.
Yeah, yeah,
No.
yeah, yeah, of course. That's shocking. I loved it. I loved it.
Yes,
Yes.
and drawings, and
Yes.
I would love Ando's drawings and technical drawings,
Yes, you
to
know
be very
how
honest.
Underwood does just like, very strong lines. And then soft. Yeah, of course. His drawing was immensely popular. So we had many architects in Korea sort of emulating his style. So Ando was very strong in the sense because I think why he's so bloody famous, I think his work now sort of bores me. His work at the moment, I don't know, it doesn't interest me anymore. But I think his earlier works, Sumiyoshi House, the void in between two houses, right? That was phenomenal for me. It's like I thought this is a canon. This is kind of it's eternal. This kind of house, not just for Asian, but for foreigners, for Western too, because it's three parts, right? One empty, two parts, crossing the bridge, and then secluded from the world in a box. Look at the sky, kind of this thing, and holding nature into the box. It's like bring me the moon, said the master to a young guy. And the young guy was like searching for how am I going to bring the moon to this guy, and then he found reflection of the moon in the pond, and then he pours his water with the moon and show to the master and says, now you've learned. So it's like the whole world in a box. So I think just that would have been enough, Ando, his achievement. For me, that's what I think. Anyway, I think, so, how can you re-achieve? It's very difficult. So the problem with modern masters is they live too long or they never retire. So they are producing something that is not up to their caliber at the end. You understand? So maybe sometimes it's better to die young, not in a literal sense, but like James Dean and Marilyn Monroe, you are eternalized at that peak. So maybe if you do the greatest work of your life, you just should hide and become a hermit. So let's go back to Piano Renzo, the staircase, the continuous escalators, and all these things. So what I'm saying is that as a student, I was taking elements or whatever life, gorging them, devouring them, and becoming part of me. So I think that was the education of my life. I don't think any really professors really taught me anything in the true sense, unless I think they inspired me, of course. Professors inspired me, but it was me that eating and devouring other architects' ideas and my friends' ideas also. Yes. Yeah.
For sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm.
I mean, you've mentioned this so many times. Once you arrive as an architect,
Mm.
how do you know when you've arrived, Mr. Moon? So one can turn into an hermit after.
Well, I think it's only when you deteriorate, Yeah, I think it could be like one more drink. I think that's our problem. The one more work I'll do, maybe it's not as good as the other one. I don't know. But
Yeah.
coming back, do you really have to make cannons all your life? I don't know. I'm just saying, I'm looking at it as an observer
Mm.
of the architect who does great work,
Right.
and become being judgmental probably whether it's good or not. But we are judgmental in a way, so that's what I'm saying.
Sure.
Amando is doing his best to do whatever he can do, I'm sure. But then I'm just saying
Yeah.
I lost interest in his work because there are so many things to see, and then you grow out
Yeah.
of certain phases, right? For example,
Yeah.
Daniel Lipskin's work reached at Jewish Museum and then it deteriorated. As far as I'm concerned, I
Right.
don't see any other work. But
Mm.
but if I'm going to have an authority on this, I should visit all his buildings to say this. But as
Right.
far from
Yeah.
the images I've had, Jewish Museum seems to
Yes.
be at the peak, even though interior design is terrible because it's not by him. Yeah, the interior really ruined it. I think he should have the authority to build nothing inside either, like bare. Everything inside should have been bare, like the court. Yeah, then it
Yeah.
would be like, wow, this is a great temple. You just go and walk around and imagine through the slits and lights coming in, like a cuts.
Right.
And then you'll be like, oh, some people will mesmerize and some people will cry. These sensitive people will cry. Oh my God. So I think only that's the fault I would make of his work. And
Mm.
but now going to Louis Kahn, whom I think I have visited the most buildings. I think I admire his work because I have
Mm.
visited them, a lot of them, even twice. I think he only did handful of work, Louis Kahn, not too many. He did a
Yeah.
lot of I think he did a lot of shitty work that nobody knows until he reached 50. And
Right.
after 50 he did, just few, not even
Yeah.
few, maybe 30, less than that. Less
Mm.
than, I don't know. So, and all his work for me seems to be very, very interesting. Yes, now
Mm.
let's jump to the hipster, Bjarke Ingels, right? He has style. He has
Yeah.
style. But it's always fun. Sometimes you find it
Yeah.
lame, but he's doing something nobody does, and he's bloody commercially successful also. But then he
Yeah.
still has the edge, I think. His work sometimes, some are sort of lame, but some are really interesting still, I think. Yeah. So he's, yeah, but as we say, all architects that we recognize are those ones who have the strongest style, right? Because
Mm.
Bjarke is box, 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 boxing, 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 boxing.
Yeah.
That's what in and out boxes, right? Yeah.
Someone like Bjarke Ingels,
Yeah.
he does have a way around explaining his projects. There's a very rational way of explaining.
Seemingly simplified diagrammatic explanation for everything that works as well as a commercialism. So he wins projects. He never says, there are so many forces here, and there are so many forces. He sketches this chaotic image. No, he says, now there's a court in Denmark. We have a courthouse. In New York, we have a skyscraper. I'm mixing the two. There's court scraper. How do you like it? And then, wow, that's great.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
think it's the kind of childlike clarity of his intention, which is just so-called one-liner. Some people say that's like, like childish, but I think that's which sells. And I
Mm.
think, of course, there's a lot of things hidden or given away. Not meant. I mean, this one strong issue is strong enough to sell the project, and I don't
Right.
think there's anything bad about it. It's just it's very hard for architects to come up in that kind of fashion. I think he's the only
Mm.
one who actually is able to do it. Nobody really
Yeah.
simplifies it to a degree. So he could be a kind of a young Zen master architect. Yes, okay,
Yeah.
I'll mix two and make one. Shoot, that's it. And the Zen master will say, well done. Very simple solution. So, and then
Right.
everybody loves it, sort of. And to be
Yeah.
honest with you, the West 57, I think, is one of my favorite projects by him. It
Okay.
changed the skyline of New York. If you look at from New Jersey to Manhattan, you see just straight one. You have, of course, you have like you have like diminishing shapes,
Mm.
thin ones, whatever. But then you
Right.
don't have a triangle. But there's a
Yeah.
triangle there, which
Yeah.
works. So I
Yeah.
think,
Yeah.
I think that's sort of. So I think it's a great achievement the way he did his
Mm.
work, and it
Yeah.
changed the skyline. He has this new work called Spiral. It's kind of
Okay.
it's
Yes.
kind of a balcony that goes around it like a snake. But we've seen this,
Mm.
so that's not so impressive. So I'm saying, you know,
Right.
like let's go to
Yes,
Heatherwick.
I get it.
Now I'm in New York. I've seen
Mm.
the vessel,
Mm.
right? The vessel of
Yes.
staircases where people start jumping, and
Right.
now Heatherwick's work, the Little Island, which I really
Hmm.
didn't care for. When you visit,
Right.
it's really beautiful work. So
Yeah.
vessel, I'm not sure about. But anyway, so
Yeah.
yeah, I think these people have made a name for being very strong in their concept or whatever. So I think in the end, I feel like how do these people are known more? I think because it has a stronger aroma, most likely.
I have been fascinated by all of them,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Like in some way or the other,
Yeah,
for
yeah,
some
yeah, sure, sure.
project or the
Yeah.
other. In my current encounters, I'm just finding it very to imagine how does one go about dealing with a client around such a project, no?
Hmm.
And then how does it happen? So I mean, even for you, you've done works which are radical in your approaches for me.
Hmm. Hmm.
So I'm just wondering how your process be of dealing with a client.
Well, okay, let's start with the most recent one, the work in Brooklyn,
Okay.
right? Okay.
Yes.
Well, luckily enough, I don't have too much work at the moment, but what I'm saying, those clients that come to me usually have seen my work. Like, there's internet nowadays, right? Or they've actually
Right.
seen the building. So if I am mentioning the client of the Brooklyn project, he's actually saw one
Hmm.
of my projects in Jeju Island in Korea. So
Okay.
he contacted me and started a project. So what I'm trying to say is that it's kind of a easier start in the sense that you don't have to show yourself you don't have to go selling your work to people. Hey,
Right.
I'm Hoon from Korea. Hey, look at my
Yeah.
work. How is it? I don't do that. It's not that I'm not saying I'm proud not saying I don't do that, but usually I think many architects work because somebody come to
Hmm.
you and they make a choice. So in a
Yeah.
sense, it's kind of precarious in the sense because there's no one waiting at the door, right? Meaning
Hmm.
sometimes there are
Hmm.
a lot of work coming in as a wave, sometimes there are not any work coming in. It's like the wave, right? Like a sine curve.
Right.
So if you get a name for yourself, whether it's global or local, once you have it,
Hmm.
people start coming over, right? To come to you, and
Right.
they know what you're
Hmm.
doing. So I think it's a vantage point. You are in a position where you are luring people to come. So in order to
Hmm.
lure work, you need good work. Like an actor has to. I mean, even a famous actor goes through audition, right? Usually. So I think it's similar in that
Hmm.
sense.
So it's a famous saying, right? You get work only if you've already done
Yes.
work. But then, as someone who's super new and who's just starting off, how do you get work? Because you probably have not substantial amount of
Yes,
work
yes.
which
So it's
translates.
usually starts two ways. You can win a competition, which is a good thing. So
Yeah.
one
Okay.
entry of an architect is entering through competition. Look at Herzog de Meuron. They won the
Hmm.
Tate Modern Gallery. Before that, they were local firm in Swiss. They were good, but they did small
Yeah.
projects in Switzerland. So I think
Yeah.
international competition of the right caliber will launch you as a global
Yeah.
architect. But it's hard to win a project like 200, 400 entries. It's not easy, right? That's a one
Yeah.
way. Second
Yeah.
way is to use your parents or relatives. Hi, Dad. I knew you were going to give me some money to start a business. Why don't you start, why don't you build a house? I mean, I don't like living in this apartment, Dad. We could live in a house, Why not, And then
Yeah.
it's your first
Yeah.
project. No, no, some people
Right.
actually do that. Or marry a woman who's rich and build, or marry a husband who's rich. No, I'm just saying a lot of cases, they
Hmm.
get a break because nobody knows you. How are they going to give you work? So the only
Yeah.
way is to get work from somebody you know, and usually parents or relatives. But after that,
Hmm.
if one work is built, and if it's substantial or
Hmm.
good, you'll get another work. So it's one
Hmm.
makes two, two makes three, three makes everything. So eventually,
Right.
yes, and you need a lot of luck. As Stephen Hall said in his interview recently, he said, he was lucky to win the Helsinki Museum project. He said, if we didn't win it, he might be doing interior New
Hmm.
York. That's what he said. He said that humbly.
Hmm.
I was lucky. I got a break, winning that
Hmm.
competition. And he was like jokingly saying,
Hmm.
if I didn't win it, probably I'm doing interior design
Yeah.
in New York still. So
Yeah.
so the luck plays because even if you're good, They
Yeah.
don't know you unless you've done it. They don't accept it as you caliber. So yeah,
Right.
I think you need to, if you want to start off, it's not about your
Yes.
education. It's not about who you worked
Yeah.
for. It's what kind of work you do.
Yes.
I think, of course, I
Hmm.
think there's I think period where people who worked with Corbusier went back to their countries and
Hmm.
became the heads of their own countries, right? People who worked for Rem Koolhaas sort of
Yeah.
dispersed everywhere else, went back to countries and they do well. So in some
Yes.
cases, it might be necessary to work for someone who's very strong or who has a very strong
Hmm.
character, or not character for himself, but disseminating his ideas like Rem Koolhaas. And I think people learn a
Right.
great deal from him as to how to survive in this world. So I think a lot of Ram kids all around the world do very well. That's amazing how Ram's
Right.
kids, like Mr. Cho in Korea, is a Ram kid, right? Not every Ram kids
Hmm.
do well, but what I'm saying is that if you look at young architects around the world at the moment, a lot of them are from
Hmm.
Ram Koolhaas' office. So that tells your
Yeah.
story. So this competitiveness in his workspace and his firm and whatever that happened. So three things: work for someone who's really strong and influential, learn from him, and start your practice. And you have the good connections with him also. And ask your
Hmm.
parents and be a nuisance to your relatives. Just
Yeah.
once, for once. Just be a nuisance to your relative or your parents, and
Yeah.
then or enter a competition. And these are
Yeah.
three options I think you have. Everybody has this
Hmm.
option. So, and of course, I think you need to be. If you're complacent, you will never get anywhere, right? So I guess those people almost aggressive in a way, not too much, but
Hmm.
aggressive enough. Oh, he needs a lot. He wants to do a lot of things. Oh my God. Oh, he's ambitious. So
Hmm.
maybe that's another push or drive that really makes an architect. I think. I don't know. Some, because
Hmm.
I know some great Korean architects who sort of retires and goes into thin air. They're great architects, but they're not like that aggressive. You know what I mean? All in all, clients are hard to deal with. So
Yeah.
architects get tired of clients, especially their whimsy and their change of mind. And so, to be honest with you, after like 50 or 60 buildings I've built, clients are not easy. Not easy. You always you have to be like kind of aware of them. And so sometimes they change their minds and they are illogical
Hmm.
sometimes. Maybe you did something wrong to
Hmm.
them, whatever. So there's
Yeah.
a dimension of architecture which is really important as a student. You never know that really plays the role, because he or she is devoting a lot of their money into believing you. Because if you're an
Yeah.
architect, you're not the general contractor, but you're going to be the initiator.
Yeah.
So I think, to be honest with you, I don't know whether you're. I think the good architect, whether you're a great designer or not, I think it's very important to be sincere and honest, because
Hmm.
that's what people look at. They don't want to look at a talented, sly asshole as an architect. He's talented, but they wouldn't look at you as the bankable architect, because then he's too good, but look at the form, but then he's not trustworthy. They are not going to give you the work. Yeah.
Hmm.
So now we come back to the
Yeah.
basics. Then you should be a good person, good, well
Yeah.
disciplined person. But
Yeah.
this is so normal a way of speaking. I mean, there might be other perks of a person that attracts other people. You might have a very criminal mind, and that attracts people. No, you never know. You have such a criminal
Yeah.
mind, but people love you as a charisma. Oh, it's such charisma. But inside you have such a criminal mind, but they respect you for it. So you never know the perk. So let's find the perk. Now, I have to talk about this guy called Sadhguru. The only reason why I talk about this guy is that YouTube, I don't know, these algorithms always bring him up. I only recently saw him, suddenly realized, is he well known in India?
Yeah. He's very well known in India.
Okay, is he kind of looked at respected, or is he kind of looked at like, oh, he's just.
Oh no, no. He is very respected.
Oh, okay. Because there's a lot of, like, even Beatles had their gurus, right? So India has this. I'm saying there's this kind of spirituality and wisdom that is
Yeah.
part of your country because of these
Hmm.
Vedas, I think. Vedic cultures. Anyway, so people listen to him because it's very soothing to hear what he says.
Yes.
Yeah, and he doesn't speak difficult language. He just speaks. He had a mystical experience like we had. We only had 3 seconds, right? He had many, 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 many seconds of him being part of everything, becoming one with it, with the world.
Yeah.
But that's what they exactly say. All these people, spiritual people, say the experience in a similar fashion. That there was no longer me. The forest was me. The star was me. I was the star. And it's kind of your complete dissolve into this nature.
Yeah.
and become part of it
Yeah.
without any hallucinatory drugs involved.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he had it twice, they say. No, I read it in the Wikipedia, sorry.
Yeah.
And then he started teaching yoga.
Right.
Yeah, and then that's the story. And he's found popular in America too. And he has that fashionable sense of dark goggles, and
Yeah.
how his beard fits him so well. His beard and his turban looks like just the right image. It's perfect. It's like a poster of a spiritual guru. So it fits perfectly the way he speaks and his fancy glasses in Dubai. Yeah, and then but then I'm interested in these things because you question.
Right.
You question, right, about life. Anyway.
I think Sadhguru caught people's imagination for two major reasons. One,
Okay.
the way he speaks. He's a very
Okay.
good communicator.
Yeah.
And I mean, very similar, to say B.R.K. Engels, where he would break down a concept into very simple chunks for people to consume. And the second thing is that most of the gurus or religious men, women in the country would always be super serious. I mean, they would never be identified wearing like normal people's clothes, like say a T-shirt or a shirt, wearing jeans. Landed up being this person who would ride bikes, who would wear normal clothes. He'll just so it was easier for people to relate to him is what is my perception, but obviously I don't know much of.
Yeah, I think, so I mean, as you mentioned, Bjarke, about how everyday people can relate his words and his diagram, right?
Yes.
And I think that's an important part of it, because architecture is about the public too. And as a religious man, I think that's a good move, because whatever, he seemed to be more, how do you say, adaptable to the environment.
Yeah.
So I know. But like you get this interest. I listened to a few episodes, and then you forget about it. So that's the phase I'm in. I saw some of his work, and then you realize, it's his words. It's not your words. So you know what I mean?
Yes.
You have to make your own. Yeah, it's good to have him. Yes.
Wow, I really enjoy what you just said. So how do you make your own words, Mr. Moon?
Well, sometimes I speak in my mind.
Okay.
I talk to myself like
Okay.
a crazy person.
Okay.
Or I speak internally and externally. Or like you have short bursts of. I think everybody has a revelation and manifestation of some sort. Not just Moses. Come on, we're human. We all have it. We all have it. It's just whether you catch it or not. Whether it's a short burst or a long burst, I don't know. If you have a long burst and depth, then you become a religious leader. If you don't, you just cleanse your mind for a day,
right,
or a moment. So I think it's about repetition. Like, why do we wash our face again and again, even though it's going to get dirty, right? Same thing.
Yeah.
So we wash our face. We know it's going to get dirty, but we wash it again. So I think cleansing is kind of, you do it every day. It's a ritual. So I think ritual is very important. Every day, something simple, ritual. So you don't have to even mention about religion, right? So you just, I think it's very important. For me in New York, while I'm here, my ritual is having a nice toast with goat cheese and coffee for breakfast. I think it's great. Every morning I have that. And then I read a little bit of a book of some sort, and that really starts the day. And then I do a little bit of doodle, not very concentrated. I'm ADH, whatever, so I'm not very good at it, but I have short bursts of concentration. And that enough in the morning, a little bit of book reading, good breakfast, and a little bit of walk in Brooklyn just makes my day. Other things are, just that is enough. But I think I've lost it because I've been traveling too much. So I think the thing about traveling too much, the only bad thing about it is that it's sometimes hard to do your ritual because you are, you understand. I think it's easy. I think if I get that ritual, then I find some kind of peace in me. I think last year there was a university in Korea, and their class was looking into architecture. So they chose me as to look into. I had 20 students studying my work as their semester work, and two critiques and critiquing me. It's coming out as a book in Korean.
Oh, wow.
Sometime this year.
Okay.
And one of the critiques said, we were talking casually, and he said, Mr. Moon, you are lucky. Why? You are like kind of meditative in the sense, and architecture is just part of it.
Yeah.
So you're getting paid for your meditation. That's what he said. There was I think he had a point. So what I mean to say is that because my work is actually work, but it's also about me. It's infused. It's more like an artist. more, you know how architects are more not, they're artists but not really truly artists because they are segregated, you know, their work and they themselves are different. He could be an asshole, but he does religious work, right? But for me, I'm more like an artist in the sense that it's intertwined.
Right.
So I think that's why he says, I get paid for wandering around.
Yeah, which I think is super nice for him to put it in those words.
Yes, he was very kind, and he had a very kind attitude because otherwise he wouldn't come in the first place as a critique. You understand, right? Otherwise, they would say, if I ask somebody, they would say, "Oh, no, I don't want to talk about him. No, 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 no." So for me, I think architecture is a kind of a vehicle or a skewer to understand life for me. So it's a skewer I have. So architecture is a kind of understanding life and understanding the world through the skewer of architecture.
Right.
So what my skewer is architecture. Some people might have a skewer for other things, literature or something. I don't know. So for me, architecture is my filter. So you know, basically, I'm a filter for the universe. So what am I? What am I? I'm filtering everything, you know, and everything comes and filters, and I become. You know how rose has that rose smell.
Right.
The rose has same ingredient, sunlight, earth, but then he has that fragrance. Now lavender has the same fragrance. I don't have to be great or anything. It's just that, let's say I'm a shitty, smelly flower. Then if I become a shitty, smelly flower, that's successful. If I really become that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's what it is. Yeah, I think. Yeah, so architecture is a kind of a journey, kind of for me, a journey, a tool to think. And of course, as itself is very interesting and mind observing. When I'm doing my house design at the moment, I really enjoy it. So you know, so yeah, I'm immersed. I can be immersed in architecture. I'm lucky that I have this. So making money and not money is kind of secondary in the true sense. But then you have to make money, of course, to live, unless you are well off. So for me, you haven't started your practice yet. So I think that you have a long, great life ahead of you. So it's great. I mean, you have infinite possibilities available.
Yeah.
Right.
So I'm just wondering, if you were an architect of my age today, and if you had YouTube as at your disposal as a tool, or not just YouTube, but like these media outlets, right? How would you be different in using them or in your process?
I think if I know Rhino, if I know Illustrator, if I know Photoshop, if I know SketchUp, if I know YouTube, all these things, media fluently, I'll use them like hell. I think I'll be producing like strange architecture instead of doodle. I would multiply them. You know, I would do. I think if I am adept at these tools, I'll be using them quite a lot more than. I think one of the reasons why I'm using my hands is for convenience,
right?
Because it's just right here, right? But if I see the tool as easily done, you know, if I am able to use the tools easily,
right,
I'm sure I'm going to use it. Yeah, and I would create more fantastical, more detailed. You know how you can zoom in, right? You can zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. So I would do definitely a drawing where you can zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, and then it starts with architecture, ends with pornography or something like that. Or starts with pornography and you zoom in and it's architecture. You know what I mean? There's a beautiful torso of a woman from rear at the bottom, and then you zoom in, zoom in, zoom in, and then it's architecture. And reverse is possible. You think it's a foul picture, but then you come zoom in, zoom in, zoom in. It's a great piece of architecture. So I think this transformation, I would love this transformation, where something very banal becomes something very important. Something very important becomes very banal and trivial. Yeah, something like that. This zooming in and zooming in out and transformation, I'll be really interested.
You are imagining space even now, aren't you?
Yes. Yeah, I'm sort of, no, I think I'm moving my body to exaggerate and get it conveyed. So, and also, I could be if I wanted to be, I could study to be an art director of a movie. Not a serious one, but a very, silly, maybe experimental one.
Right.
So, yeah, I would love media. No, basically, I love media. So, I'm very happy to be part of the media. That's why people know that. That's why I'm always called to be a presenter for a TV show.
Yeah.
Because I can blabber away like this. Nonsense.
Yeah.
Non-script.
Non-script.
Like this, documentary. You just speak whatever they want, whatever I want, not whatever they want, because they have whatever they've written as architectural possibilities is very limited.
Right.
So I go beyond that. So they like that. As an architect, I can speak about things that's they didn't think about that, and then I always talk about not interesting, but something that comes to my mind.
super interesting how
Mm.
how we are even doing this. And I mean, today, I mean, I was just thinking about ways in
Mm.
which I could, approach all these tools that are at our disposal today, which probably back in the day you did not have when you started off. And how would you, wearing these shoes, be acting, right? And what would you do? And I totally get it. I totally
Mm.
understand what.
I think, but there are pros and cons of having a lot of tools because you have so many choices.
Yeah.
So the possibilities can be limiting at the same time because you have
Right.
so many options. It's like, when you're young in Korea, there were probably three kinds of toothpaste. Good one, Colgate, that's from America, the expensive good one. Lucky, that's Korean, good enough.
Okay.
So it's either you have a very simple choice. Your life was simple.
Yeah.
You just go for Colgate or Lucky. Now you go to toothpaste shop. There's hundreds. So then this selection is difficult for you. This just selecting this
Yeah.
is wasting your energy. I think so. This abundance of choices you have making people go astray
Yeah.
because there are so many choices, so you don't know where to go.
I think we should. I mean, probably the next recording, but we should definitely talk about how AI is generating images and how this has also become media.
Yeah, ChatGPT and what's that program? Iron
Mid-journey.
Mid Journey. Yeah, something like
Yeah.
that. We should talk about it because yeah, I see that. I see that. I've seen images of it, but then people, I think at first they will do it many times, and then people will tire out. I think that's
Yeah.
what I feel.
I'm so unsure about this.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know the trajectory that probably humans will adapt with for these tools because
Mm.
they, I mean, 6 months back,
Mm-hmm.
the version of Midjourney was giving out a certain kind of outputs, but today with outputs are just so better.
That's what I heard.
Yeah, and I showed one of the images to my dad. I mean, I was scrolling through Instagram and there was one of the images, and he didn't recognize it was generated by a computer. He thought those were actually photographs. Why it's very difficult for me to like even foresee what next is because the evolution of these systems is super fast.
Yes.
And it's exponential in a way where I just don't know how to gauge
Yes.
what
Yes.
human reaction would be to it. I mean, I'm
Yeah, I
super
know.
fascinated.
So yeah, I think as some people say, we shouldn't be afraid of it. It's just it's also a tool.
I mean, for now it's a tool. Maybe 2 years down it won't be. It'll be a brain by
So
itself.
what do you think? It will be engulfing us, do you think?
So, Mr. Moon, right now there are different tasks. So, say a certain AI tool, like say ChatGPT, it's a chatbot.
Yes.
So I can type and it reverts
Yes.
back. But it's a very good chatbot which learns. Then there is something like Midjourney or DALI, which only spits out images in a certain way. Right now they're doing two different tasks, but probably once, so right now as a creator can combine these tools with one another and make something, but once both of them are combined at its origin as a software itself, it becomes very tough. It can start thinking itself, right? It can think, it can generate, it can make. These models then become, just because of their growth being exponential, humans might not be able to even catch up. I think it's gonna be super like quick and fast growth where humans might not be able to catch
Yeah,
up.
I think it would be as they will become movie directors, right? For example, text and movies. So there'll be lives invented. So billions of another. I think it's kind of a life that will be born without physical entity. So I think in the long run, these ideas will become lives. This idea becomes lives as like human beings without bodies. So it will be like billions and billions and trillions of lives that will be floating around. And maybe, as you said, we could choose one life. We could download one life from ChatGPT or whatever, the hybrid, and live a life like that. I don't know. But all in all, I don't know whether our goal would be surrendering ourselves. Yes. Are we going to surrender, or are we going to still believe it's a tool? You know what I mean, right?